Group D: Denmark, Tunisia, France, Australia. Again, this is going to be one of those where it's pretty obvious which teams we think are going to get through. But do you want to do the Australia talk?
Yeah, not too much to say about Australia, really.
You might get one ridiculously hard hit goal from Aaron Moy. He's still knocking about.
Yeah, just spanking it at a ridiculous pace. I mean, I don't know if you saw their qualifying game against Peru to get into the World Cup.
Can't say I went out my way to watch Australia v Peru.
So the sub goalkeeper who was playing Andrew Redmayne, not only was he doing, because they had to win a penalty shootout, not only was he doing the old wobbly legs, sort of old Bruce Scrubbler, he also got the Peru goalkeeper's water bottle, which had all information about the Australian players' penalty taking habits, and just yeeted that shit clean into the crowd.
Incredible.
Just yeeted his water bottle, so the Peruvian goalkeeper had no inside information or intel on how any of the goal scorers or penalty takers were going to be for Australia. So yeah, it's a team that hasn't really got the strength in depth. Like, Australia have always usually been built around a core of players that play at a fairly
Tim Cahill.
Yeah, but play at exactly that, at that fairly decent level for clubs in Europe, and they just don't really have that anymore. Like, there are lots of their guys that are kind of like, you know, lower league teams in England or playing for teams in Scotland or just kicking around. One guy in here that I do really like, who'd always been like a solid sort of on the fringes of Premier League top level championship player they have, is Jackson Irvine, who I was extremely happy to see at FC St Pauli, because there isn't more of a hipster looking footballer with a sort of like tied back man bun than Jackson Irvine. So St Pauli is like pretty much the perfect location for him. But yeah, there just isn't any names that are immediately jumping off the page at me from this Australia team. I
hear what you're saying. I know what Australia needs to get through to the last 16. They need to do a last minute call up and bring back the Duke. Mark Viduka 2022. Let's go.
Bring back the Duke. They get Harry Kewell while they're at it as well.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Get injured after 7 or 8 minutes. Yeah. Good times.
I hear Mark Schwartz is still available.
Let's go Tunisia next, because I think there's a couple of decent players in there that I'm like interested to see. Maybe, you know, there's a couple of people plying their trade in Europe. Of course, I am looking very much forward to seeing Hannibal Mejbri, who is.
I was waiting for how long it was going to take before you brought up Hannibal.
Yeah, United's own on loan at Birmingham City at the moment, where he is. Every time I see a clip of that guy play for Birmingham, I'm like, maybe we should call him back at Christmas. We could use a bit of that sometimes. Looks a very dynamic young player. But yeah, they're a team that like they've got a bit more diversity in terms of experience in this team than maybe some of the other African and Asian teams, so they could be a bit tougher for people, definitely tougher than a Saudi Arabia, I'm thinking, but I don't think even in my most devil's advocate mode I could push too hard for them going very far in this tournament.
No, I think the Tunisia is a time in the spotlight that kind of catapulted them to the last World Cup is kind of fading a little bit. Yeah. They're not really as effective as they were. Like, England had to sweat bullets to manage to beat them just by a 2-1 margin in the previous World Cup. Like, that was a proper intense game. They gave us a real problem. They were shithousing us the whole way through as well. It was pretty incredible. But yeah, one guy I see on here that just always, again, is another guy who scored a spectacular goal at Chelsea at some point is Wahbi Khazri.
Yeah, Montpellier's own.
Yeah, the Sunderland legend that is Wahbi Khazri. He's, you know, had a pretty decent career for a large part in France, and, you know, I think he's 31 now. I don't know if they qualify in 4 years' time, but possibly his World Cup, his final hurrah on the international stage. And yeah, he's quite comfortably their top goal scorer of their current players in terms of goals scored. He's got 24. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's a lot here that I can say about Tunisia and their chances. I think, you know, they're going to be what they usually are, which is just very narrow, very tight, very difficult to beat, and just hold on like hell and hope that they can get a result. But I'm looking at the two teams that I think are going to top this group, and I'm thinking they're going to be in trouble. But, you know, a lot of those Tunisian players have played in or experience in the French league, so that might do them some good against one of their opponents in this group.
Next up, file under team that, you know, has no realistic chance of winning the World Cup, but I don't think any team in this tournament is going to want to come up against, and that's Denmark.
Yeah.
A very well organized side, a team that has a lot of talent in there, at kind of all areas of the pitch, really. And we talked about narrative with Messi earlier on, but is there a more heartwarming narrative than, like, I would never have believed 2 years ago at the Euros if you had told me, Jack, that 2 years later we'd be sitting here as arguably Manchester United's best player this season, Christian Eriksen, returns to international tournaments with Denmark. It's an unbelievable story, and I'm going to find it very hard for that reason alone not to will these fuckers as far as they can go in this tournament.
This guy died. Like, he was actually deceased on a football pitch like 18 months ago, and pretty much for all intents and purposes he wasn't insured to play in Italy and couldn't play, and it seemed like his career was done. And then he came over, he trained with his pal Thomas Frank at Brentford for a while, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to give this football thing another bash here. And then was Brentford's player of the second half of their season by a long way last year, and has been very, very handy in the times I've seen him play for Man United this season. So he's not in here.
Jackie's so good.
But he's not. This is the point, though. He's not in here because he's a heartwarming story. Yeah. He's in here because he's still fucking great. He's a very, very good player. And like you say, there is a strength in depth all the way, and a consistency. If you look at the potential 11 that are going to start for Denmark in this tournament, it's going to be more or less the exact same 11 that they were starting 18 months ago in the Euros that got to the semi-finals. I mean, one of the guys I just absolutely love watching again because of that kind of madcap flying fullback of modern times. But I can't wait to watch Joachim Mæhle again at an international tournament and just see him just going crazy and like bombing up and down the left hand side of the pitch, overlapping, underlapping with Damsgaard and Eriksen, and having a great time.
Him and Damsgaard, just incredible, just swashbuckling on that side. It's going to be amazing. But there's like a lot of talent, as we both said, in there. You know, Højbjerg is just a consistent presence in midfield. I suppose maybe the one area you'd say, again, it comes back to what we said about a couple of other teams, the goals. And you've got Yusuf Poulsen. Yes, you've got Martin Braithwaite. Are they blowing the doors off at the top level of football? Not necessarily. But are they good units that you can aim a ball at if you're Christian Eriksen and maybe some stuff goes in? Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, completely possible. In some of their qualifying games, they were playing Kasper Dolberg as like a false nine, and then just having that kind of rotational option, you know, in and around with Damsgaard, with Poulsen, with Eriksen. So just kind of, you know, having a rotational kind of, you know, free-form front line might work for them in some games, and if they do need to go to the big shit house up front option, they can just put Braithwaite on there and have these guys maybe bounce it off him. But one of by far my favourite managers in the tournament is Kasper Hjulmand. Like, he's just such a really interesting guy to listen to, and his kind of journey into management, like coming up through, you know, Nordsjælland and Mainz and everything, and just really just represents Denmark in an absolutely fantastic way. And they play some amazing football to watch. And you have to help but think about, like, if he had more of the riches of some of the other countries, like the way Denmark play, that they could be genuine contenders, but there is just not maybe the strength and depth once we kind of scratch beneath the first 11 of the players that we've already mentioned. But they are going to be a royal pain in the arse, like, because to me they're definitely getting to the round of 16, and maybe the quarters, and whoever comes up against them ain't going to enjoy playing them one bit.
Let's go to the final team in Group D, and that is the reigning and defending world champions, France. And is there any more sickening display of the talent that is being pumped out of the French nation than, oh, what's that? Sorry, Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kante can't come to your World Cup. Oh, that's okay. Let's just put in 2 fucking children who may end up being generational midfielders themselves in Eduardo Camavinga and Tchouaméni as well. Disgusting display of power from the French. But at the same time, Jack, I'm not feeling that a second World Cup in a row is in the cards for France.
Yeah, I would say if they had a tougher group, there'd be some serious blow-up potential and out of the group stage here, just because I feel like there's going to be a lot of... There's like weird camps in this team. Mbappe's kind of got a little bit too big for his boots. There are certain guys who prefer having Benzema up front. There are certain guys who prefer it when Giroud plays up front, and they're almost like that kind of is like one of the major divides of this squad in terms of how they're going to operate on the pitch. There's a few just mad bastards in here. Like I see Matteo Guendouzi in this squad, and like if he gets on the pitch at some stage, could he just fly through someone and get himself sent off?
For a national team that has had a history of quarrels and spats and training ground fights, as we alluded to earlier on, it's quite the move to include Matteo Guendouzi and Adrien Rabiot in a squad. That is
coming to him next.
Things could fucking cook, baby.
Yeah, there's blow up potential in here, but also if you just look at the just the deep well of talent that runs through every single area on the pitch. Again, maybe another weird thing you would say is that fullback, maybe like if they're playing Pavard out on the right, that's not the best option in there. I think Theo Hernandez, Lucas Hernandez, they can both play fullback as well, but both tend to look more comfortable as centre halves, and I think that's probably an area of the pitch that could potentially cause them a few issues. But I mean, as annoying as he's been recently, Mbappe has kind of ascended. Every time I watch him in the Champions League, he does something that just makes me go, oh, just make like noises. When someone does something on a football pitch where you just kind of lose control of your senses, and that's where Mbappe is at this point in his career. And if he wanted to, he could just take this World Cup completely on his shoulders and win it for France. That's the level he's bringing to the game right now. But I don't know if he gets the opportunity to do that. To me, the key decision, like to wind it all the way back, is do you Benzema or do you Giroud? Do you go with somebody who is a reigning Ballon d'Or winner and an incredible go-getter, or do you go for somebody in Giroud who is having a good season and will score you goals, but probably brings more balance to the team and allows the forwards and the likes of Mbappe and Dembele to come in from those wide positions, work it off him, and then potentially just have him be that pivot point that just it kind of has more consistency in the team? Because Benzema's not that guy. Benzema is very much I'm going to find a space and score a goal type guy. So to me, Deschamps got a few interesting decisions on his hands, I would say.
Yeah, no, for sure. Right, let's rank them. I think this is a fairly easy 1-2, France-Denmark.
Yeah, France, Denmark, and then take your pick from Tunisia, Australia. I'll give it to Tunisia. I think Tunisia will probably beat Australia.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are. Sorry, Socceroos fans.
Yeah, sorry lads.